This morning we're making gardening boxes. As you can see, we're going to make two 3-foot by 7-foot gardening boxes made out of clear-cut redwood. And you want to use redwood as opposed to pressure-treated lumber because pressure-treated lumber has chemicals in it and you don't want the chemicals to get into your vegetables. You can tell pressure-treated lumber because it's the lumber with all the little nicks in it, and that's where they put the chemicals in. And you want to use redwood because redwood will hold up to the dirt, rain, weather, and it won't rot. It'll last for 20 years. If you use pine or any other wood, it would rot out and fall apart in just a couple of years. As you can see, we're using 2x12 redwood pieces, 3-foot 2x12s on the end, 7-foot 2x12s for the sides. Of course, you can make your box any size you want. This is what we've chosen, and it fits in well with the space that we have. In the corner, where the 3-footers attach to the 7-foots, we will have 4x4 redwood pieces where we will bolt everything together, and we'll show you that a little bit later in the video. When we went to the lumber yard, if you go to a good local lumber yard, the people working in the lumber yard will help you with all the cuts. So the only saw cuts of the lumber that we'll be making are for the 4x4s that you can see way in the far distance there. And we'll only have to make 3 or 4 cuts on the 4x4s. The tools you're going to need will be a saw. You can just use a hand saw. You also need a drill because when we put all the sides together, we're going to use bolts, so you need a drill. A tape measure. We're going to use a level as well to get the boxes nice and level. And that's about it, really. We've chosen 6-inch, 3/8-inch bolts. 6 inches because it has to go through 4x4, which is 4 inches, and a 1x12, which is 1 inch wide. So that's 5 inches of wood. So the 6-inch bolt will leave a little bit on the end for the washers and the nuts. Each corner requires 4 bolts, 32 bolts per box. We're doing 2 boxes, 64 bolts for the 2 boxes. Oh, and the bolts have to be galvanized, or should be galvanized. The galvanized, it's kind of like redwood. When the bolts are galvanized, they stand up to the weather and the dirt better, and they don't rust out and break down. We will be making some cuts on the 4x4s, which are the ones that go in the corner. We'll be cutting them about 1 foot 2 inches each. We've got 2 4x4s. We're making 2 boxes, so we could cut 4 pieces from each of our 2 4x4s. But what we're actually going to do is we're going to cut 5 pieces from one of the 4x4s, and only 3 pieces from the second 4x4. That way, the piece of scrap wood that we have left over is longer, and that increases the likelihood that we'll be able to use that piece of scrap on a different project. The wood is expensive. This wood and the bolts, the whole project came out to about $340, and that doesn't even include the soil, or the labor.
We got free labor.
Which is free labor. It's dad labor. Free dad labor. So the materials can be expensive, so the more you save from project to project, the more you will save in cost.
Eco-friendly and cost-friendly.
That's correct. All right, let's get to work.
Here we go.
Okay, we've decided 1 foot 2 inches is the length that we want. So we want to get right at that 1.2. Fortunately, this is not particularly exacting, so we're just going to do right at the best we can there. Now we take our square and draw the line. So that is where we'll want to make our cut. We end up with the piece that's 1 foot 2 inches long. We just repeat that. Out of this one piece, we'll get 5 1 foot 2 inch long pieces. Now we're going to talk about making our cuts. But the first thing we're going to talk about is the good old-fashioned hand saw. A lot of people don't realize when they start using a saw that the teeth of the saw go in a particular direction. This saw, the teeth are pointing forward, which means you're only cutting when you're pushing forward. When you pull back, you're not cutting. A lot of people are using the saw and they're going back and forth really fast and really hard, but they're only cutting half the time. So you want to push hard, pull back easy. Push hard, pull back easy to save your energy, particularly if you have a lot of cuts to make. Left hand, if you're right-handed, your left hand goes on the wood. Your thumb is the guide. So you place the saw with the teeth right on your line. Your hand is holding the wood in place. Your thumb is against the saw as the guide. You push forward gently to start the line, the saw line. Pull back easily, push forward, and you start off slow to get your saw line. And you'll more than likely have to blow the sawdust out of the way so you can follow along. Alright, you'll see that I'm no longer using my thumb as a guide. In the beginning, when you were just starting, the thumb acted as a guide. But now, I don't need a guide because my saw line holds the saw in place. Now I'm just holding the wood, but holding back a little bit in case the saw jumps out. We don't want to cut the hand. So the hand is back a few inches. And we continue to saw. Then it gets a little easier.
Did you go in the pond? Did you go in the water?
We've run out of time for today, so we're going to have to postpone the rest of the project till tomorrow. But that's what happens. When you're working on a project, whatever time you think it's going to take, double it and then add an hour or two. We'll be back tomorrow.
But we got a lot done today.
And tomorrow we'll get back to work.
Woo!